Hi, good morning. My name is Martha Alvarez, and I'm one of the advocates here at ACSA. Thank you for joining us today for this joint webinar with four associations, ACSA, CSBA, CASBO, and CSESA. So you'll be able to download the PowerPoint and other materials from our website, ACSA.org/GR webinars. And so we encourage you to download any resources for the purpose of the webinar, so you can take notes along the way. For the next hour, we have with us two of my colleagues, Terry Burns from CSBA, as well as Sarah Batches from CASBO. All of our contact information is available at the end of the PowerPoint, so you can contact us with any questions you may have after the presentation. The webinar will also be recorded, and it will be available within the next 72 hours on our website. So for those of your colleagues or other members of your community who were unable to be with us today, they can listen to the recording afterwards. And lastly, we encourage you to also type any questions you might have on the chat box, so we can answer questions throughout the presentation on anything that you might want to get clarified. Today we'll be covering four different topics. First, you have heard about the California School Dashboard that will be released in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We'll be covering some of the key elements about the new dashboard, including the state and local indicators, how to use the dashboards and the available reports. And then also we'll be covering some of the communication resources for your community and for your use, so you can be prepared to talk about this issue with your local stakeholders. I should also say that our associations are very excited about the work that the State Board of Education has undertaken over the past 2 years. This is the first initial phase of the accountability system. We're very pleased with the stakeholder feedback that had been incorporated into the new system. And as we have heard from the State Board of Education members over the last 2 years, they're willing to make modifications based on practitioner and the field's experiences. So please let any of us know your feedback as you begin to work with the dashboard and student data reports released sometime soon. So what is the dashboard? You have heard about the dashboard in a prior context. Over the past 2 years, our associations, the State Board of Education, and other groups have referred to the dashboard as the evaluation rubrics. We're now referring them as the California School Dashboard. There's going to be a website where you'll be able to download resources, and Terry will be providing additional comments later on in the presentation. But at the core of the dashboard is being able to look at student performance on each of the LCFF priorities, looking at where the equity or disparities exist, so we can close achievement gaps, and also being able to provide this information to local stakeholders, so you can inform the local practices and the different actions and services included in the local control and accountability plans. So the dashboard is meant to be a tool for the local conversations and looking about holistically student performance, and also to encourage the cycle of continuous improvement, to be able to look deeper at the student data to decide and drive actions. So here, again, you have the 3 priorities or 3 purposes of the dashboard. As I mentioned before, LCFF state priorities, we have all of the 8 covered in the new dashboard called state and local indicators, and Sarah will be providing more details about those. Now with the dashboard, it's really a great opportunity to think about student needs more holistically, thinking about what they need and how we can support their achievement moving forward. And it also will be an opportunity to be able to identify any disparities so that we can close those achievement gaps. And lastly, as we know, as one requirement and one purpose of the dashboard is that it would help school districts identify their strengths and areas, weaknesses, and potential areas of improvement. This will also allow the County Office of Education and the State Superintendent of Public Instruction to be able to provide additional support and resources for anyone who needs additional technical assistance. There are 4 critical components of the dashboard. First, you'll be able to have access to summary reports where you can look at student information for each of the indicators, and also be able to look at the performance standards for each of those indicators. So that includes areas that Sarah will be talking about. And then we also have an equity report, which will be a clear way of identifying where those gaps, achievement gaps exist. Another great purpose of the dashboard display that we'll have available in the next 2 weeks, it's a data analysis tool where you'll be able to, as local stakeholders, will be able to download detailed reports with additional information that you may want to talk to and communicate with your local stakeholders. One tool that will be available in the coming months is referred to as the Statement of Model Practices. The Department of Education is currently developing this resource for you. It's an optional resource meant to support school districts and county offices and charter schools that will be able to provide examples of effective practices of how districts throughout the state might be implementing the LCAP priorities. Again, they're optional resources meant to support continuous improvement. And part of this work too in the coming months will be external resources that will be linking an opportunity for districts to look at other resources available from other school districts from across the state. We hope that this information will be helpful and a good use at the local level. I won't go into too many details about the key features of the dashboard. I'll just mention that that's where we'll see the different indicators where they'll be displayed, both the state indicators and the local indicators. And then school districts will also be able to look at the information both district-wide and at each individual school site regarding performance levels for different student groups. This is an opportunity to think about district-wide, also for school site leaders to be able to look at student demographics and how they're performing for each of the student groups. And also to have an honest conversation with the community about those achievement gaps that we hope to close in the near future. This is the core messaging that the State Board of Education is providing to the field in communicating with different stakeholders about the purpose of the new accountability system. And even though it's the first phase of the new system, this will be the key principles that will be considered as there's any modifications in the system moving forward. So first of all, it's very important to keep in mind that it's more than a test score, it's more than a single number. We're very pleased that it's looking holistically about student performance and how do we determine student needs. We have multiple measures, and so we're very pleased about the state's direction in supporting the whole child. Second, we're very pleased with the core principle about keeping equity at the front and center of this conversation about being able to truly discuss the disparities that exist at the local level and how school districts can support all students, particularly those who have additional needs. And lastly, similar to the local control funding formula principle, the new accountability system really thinks about how can we support local decision making so that it can really inform practitioners' work day in and day out, all the way from the local level, the involvement of teachers, parents, principals, school board members, and superintendents and central office staff, that together all of the local practitioners can really support students because they are the ones working closest with students. We have the 8 state priorities and how they relate to the local indicators and the state indicators. What you see is on the what you see on the left column are the LCFF priorities identified numerically. Second column in the middle, you have the state indicators, all 6 of them, which Sarah will go into more detail in the next few slides. And then lastly, we have the local performance indicators identified on the third column. So this is just really trying to see how the new accountability system is grounded under the LCFF priorities and how they all fit together. And in just the next slide or two, really thinking about what does this mean for you locally. Thinking about how, so you have been working with the local control accountability plans, the LCAPs, for the past 3 years. You're currently likely at the local level developing your new your annual update, engaging your communities in discussing your progress made over the past year and any new actions or services, any goals you want to modify for the coming year, for the 3-year LCAP starting in the 17-18 school year. What you see in this diagram, it's thinking about the cycle of improvement, always thinking about making continuous improvement. The goal will be that starting every fall, by November each fall, starting in 2017, the data will be pre-populated by the State Board of, the Department of Education, really, the CDE, the CalPADS information that your districts provide to the state will be pre-populated for all of the state indicators every November. The goal will be that you will be at the local level using this information, this data, to initiate conversations at the local level about your student performance, your goals, your actions, and your services, and how all of those areas tie together. It's meant to be supporting those local conversations with your stakeholders, and the idea will be that you'll be having reflection on many conversations to be able to support students. That would tie into the LCAP development process and an annual update that would happen between late winter and early spring. And then that would be able to continue through the adoption of the LCAP that the school boards do right before the budget is adopted in June. So thinking about this holistically, how does it inform your local practice and your strategic planning at the local level? And now, if I could please have my colleague Sarah discuss the state and local indicators.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Marta. Sara Baches with CASBO, here to discuss both the state indicators and local performance indicators. To begin, so the state indicators. The new accountability system is a holistic and multidimensional look at various student performance metrics, not just based on test scores, but also conditions of learning and student engagement. As required by the LCFF statute, the State Board of Education and the Department of Education are determining the performance standards for each of these state indicators listed here on the slide. The state indicators are based on data that is collected consistently across the state from LEAs through the CalPAT system. The state indicators by LCFF priority are listed here. Priority 4, the academic indicator on English language arts and math for grades 3 through 8th. Priority 4 as well is English learner progress. Priority 5, chronic absenteeism. This indicator is still under development and we should see more information fall of 2017. Priority 5 is also graduation rates. Priority 6 is suspension rates, and priority 7 and 8, the college and career readiness, is an indicator that is still under development, and we should be able to see more as the months progress. For this one in particular, I did want to indicate components that will be part of priority 7 and 8's college and career readiness indicator. It will include test scores for grades 11 on ELA and math, early assessment program as part of the SBAC, the career and technical education, A through G completion, and college level tests. So it will be a composite of various components in order to determine college and career readiness. It is important to note that this is an evolving system. New indicators will become available at the state level in the near future. So I mentioned both chronic absenteeism and college and career readiness as indicators that are still evolving. Additional data will also become available that will allow for modifications and revisions to certain state indicators, such as the ELA assessments, math assessments, and the English language indicator, suspension rates, and the college and career readiness indicator. For the state performance levels, the State Board approved the methodology for measuring performance of these state indicators. The overall performance level that LEAs and schools receive is based on how current performance, which means status, compares to the past performance, meaning change. This provides a more complete picture of performance than a point-in-time snapshot and recognizes improvement as part of an overall performance. Each indicator has a separate formula to combine status and change, which will be called the reference chart, and Terry will be able to explain more in detail later on in our presentation. For the state performance levels, this chart describes, and it's loading still, so our apologies. Schools and districts receive one of the 5 color-coded performance levels on the state indicators. From highest to lowest, the 5 performance levels are blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. As you may have noticed, the colors are matched with the pizza slices. Each color always has the same number of slices. The highest is blue with 5 slices, and the lowest is red with 1 slice. Slices help with black and white copying and accessibility for those that are colorblind. the color and amount filled. Green always has 4 segments filled, and red will always have 1 segment filled, are 2 ways of showing performance levels. This ensures accessibility for all individuals and that the reports are usable when printing in black and white. As for the reference charts, performance levels are calculated using percentiles to create a 5x5 reference chart that combines status and change. For example, an LEA with a high status and an increase in change will receive an overall performance of green. So these will be created for each of the state indicators and also based on grade span and the type of LEA, K through 12, unified, elementary school district, and high school district. The next chart will display the remaining LCFF priorities called the local indicators. Priority 1, Priority 2, Priority 3, 6, Priority 9, and 10 for county offices of education. These priorities are data that are locally measured and attained by school districts. The methodology for self-reporting on local indicators is based on a standard for each local indicator, where an LEA will annually analyze its progress and its priority and report the results to the local governing boards and its stakeholders and the public through the dashboard. The State Board of Education has approved tools available to gather this data. Evidence that will be used to demonstrate meeting the standard. An LEA identifies that it reviewed and reported the results to its local governing board and on the school dashboard. And criteria will be used to assess the status based on that evidence listed above. A school in a school district can either meet or not meet for 1 year or did not meet for 2 more years. The local indicator, the standard for each local indicator. This is the methodology for self-reporting on those local indicators. So local indicators do not apply to individual school sites. Local indicators apply to charter schools only if the underlying charter petition includes the goals of that indicator. The State Board of Education has approved self-reflection tools to assist in identifying local progress. Data is uploaded by the LEA to the public dashboard website, and data is self-reported and subject to community discussion and used in your LCAP development. We see that there's a question on college and career readiness. We'll develop that answer and be able to get back to you shortly, so thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for providing an overview of the different indicators. We'll be transitioning to our colleague Terry Burns from CSBA momentarily to discuss the dashboard reports in more detail and the information available. In the meantime, please type any questions you might have in the chat box about the first portion of the webinar. And like Sarah mentioned, we'll either respond to those questions before the end of the webinar or be able to follow up with you directly afterwards. So we'll transition from Terry to Sarah. Thank you, Sarah, for the information. Please wait a few seconds as we go into this next section of the webinar regarding part 2 on the dashboard reports. We invite our guests to stay just for a few seconds as we transition the speakers. And if you miss any portion of the first part of the webinar, we'll have everything together at the end of the webinar on our website and also on the Facebook page.